I wanted to talk about adversity. And even though I've had success in my investment fund, probably more than I expected, there was a period at which I thought, during which I thought, and even though I'd read it, that everybody gets adversity in their lives, I had the thought that somehow I could escape it. And there's an element that you can get rid of or that you can reduce the impact of through money. But I have come across some adversity recently in my personal life. I broke my hand, which was the least of it. I also found myself in a situation where so both my parents and one of my in-law parents, my mother-in-law, were all having medical issues, which were distressing for all of us in the family. It's no fun when somebody that you love dearly has a medical issue, and there's no getting away from it. There's only a certain amount that money can do. You might be able to get them a slightly better room at the hospital, but the amount of pain meds they can get or whatever treatment they can get, the limitations are not related to money. And so it just reminded me that it doesn't matter how much money you make or how successful you are as an investor. Adversity is always going to be with us, and suffering is always going to be with us. It's part of the human condition. But I feel extraordinarily enriched by the example primarily of Charlie Munger for me, and it's inspired me to approach the suffering that I will inevitably have with the spirit of Charlie Munger with me. I wanted to tell two stories about Charlie Munger that maybe not everyone knows. The first is that Charlie Munger had a son who died of leukemia, and it was a devastating thing for Charlie. It happened when he was relatively young, and he talks. I think there are publicly available talks of him just wandering the streets, feeling sorry for himself. And I don't know how he gained the knowledge, but he's very adamant that to pity yourself, to feel sorry for yourself, is one of the most utterly destructive things that one can do, and is not worth doing, and one shouldn't do. And the second story about Charlie Munger is that he's blind in one eye, and he's blind in that eye because a very straightforward procedure that should not have blinded him went wrong. And so he's this incredibly well-read guy who's reading all the time, who loves to read, and he only has one eye to read from. And I would challenge any of the people who might view this video, challenge you if you're watching this video, to show me one occasion when Charlie Munger has complained about the bum outcome of that operation. He did not sue the doctor. He did not sue the hospital. He didn't complain about it. He never talks about it. And it comes from this stoic mindset that says, life is adversity, life contains tragedy, and our job is to make the very best we can in spite of that tragedy. And so I want to add two more thoughts, which I think are extraordinarily valuable. One is from Jordan Peterson, which is that suffering is inevitable. It's what we do with the suffering that counts. And our job in life is to make our suffering meaningful. So don't pity yourself. Don't feel upset. I shouldn't feel upset about my broken arm or about the issues that my members of my family have around medicine. But I should make the suffering meaningful, meaning make the most of my relationship with them, help them to see the positive in their life, help to find the joy. So that's and another way of encapsulating that is as a Buddhist idea of life being us hanging off a cliff by a branch and looking down, and we see a tiger that's all ready to eat us the minute we fall off the last branch that we're holding onto for dear life. And then just above us, if we reach, there's a juicy, tasty strawberry to eat. And that's kind of what life is always, even when the suffering is not close, and even when the suffering is nearby or the tiger is nearby, we need to find those strawberries and eat them. And I want to share a last thought around suffering with Charlie Munger, which is um, when we suffer, when adversity strikes, when we have difficulties, it is an opportunity to look in ourselves for the very best and to act in the very best way. So, suffering is an opportunity, adversity is an opportunity to act well. Some people will not act well when adversity strikes, but if we act well, that is a sign of our virtue. And to bring up a thought from Marcus Aurelius, he tells his generals, you want to be virtuous, but you don't want to prove it on the battlefield. It doesn't work that way. You prove your virtues. You have your virtues because you prove them on the battlefield. So as I've been going through the difficulties with my family, I've also said these thoughts to people around me. And I think that it's important to talk about these things because obviously the suffering and the adversity are not pleasant and we wish we didn't have to face them. But the more we talk about them, we can show others leadership by showing how we plan to deal with it. We can inspire them. And then what I've done with the people I've talked to about this is I've said, hold me to this standard. So if you find me wallowing in self-pity, remind me that I said these things and that this is the standard that I should hold myself to. So um, in a certain way, this has got nothing to do with investing and everything to do with investing. In my Because investing is suffering. Investing and buying something, you'll be buying it because it's cheap, because it's unrecognized, and it may take time for those things that aren't recognized to get recognized. And during the time that it's unrecognized, one is going to endure a certain amount of suffering. And so the capacity to suffer and the capacity to handle adversity is, I think, very closely related to ultimately great performance in investing. And so it has huge implications for investing, but it also obviously has huge implications for just living a better life. Thanks for listening in.